please!
With 26 million homes in the UK, we are living on top of each other.
They said we're here to investigate a sex crime.
And when neighbours go to war...
And I thought, well, what a psycho.
Well, I realised it, and I should be fearful for my life.
It can turn home life into a living hell.
So I threw him to the floor.
But if I was to live above him, I'd probably done him in by now.
And it's totally wrecked my life.
Coming up.
You owe us £45,000. When are you going to pay that?
Bad blood on a West London estate.
Why don't you come and hit me?
A woman is terrorised by a neighbour upstairs.
It was horrible, horrific. It was like a horror movie.
And a single woman takes on two sets of neighbours.
She was smashing my head on the floor. Could hear it crack.
Bad neighbours can make home life a living hell.
She actually sat on that wall there and urinated on the wall.
I didn't want to come back to the place, you know. I just wanted to disappear.
And when things boil over, the consequences can be shocking.
I knew there was going to be, like a volcano erupting, basically.
To go to that extreme and the injuries, and it was just sickening.
In Newcastle upon Tyne, Rachel Eyre moved into a flat on this square in 2003.
One of the things that I was really excited about when I first moved into the area was to be close to my friends and close to my parents. It was also really nice to be in an area that was quite secluded off the main road as well.
And Rachel wasted no time in making the block of flats feel like home.
When I first moved into the block, I did try and make it as nice as possible, because although it was a nice building, it was a little bit drab, so I got nice plants and put them all around the landings, and even got some of the stickers for the walls, which were pretty butterflies and flowers.
But not everyone appreciated her efforts.
One day I went out and my plants had all been smashed, so I bought a lovely little strawberry planter. There was big holes kicked in that. There was even one incident where there was plants actually thrown out of that window there, and they were all smashed on the ledge and actually on the front as well. And it was just awful, you know, seeing things that you've looked after and you've grown yourself, and then somebody's just come in and smashed the hell out of them.
Rachel had only been in the flat a few weeks, but already had the measure of her new neighbours' friends.
I did have a fairly good idea who it was, because there was always drunks coming into the building, and they were always with Harry the Fish.
In the flat above Rachel lived Henry Nicholson, known to his friends as Harry the Fish. And Harry says Rachel's arrival in the block made waves right from the start.
We used to call Rachel the plant woman because of all our plants on the landing. She had like pictures of plants on the wall as well. She just seemed totally obsessed with plants. There was plant pots everywhere. There was plants all the way around here. All the way around here. I do believe there was a few plant pots along there. People coming up did have a few drinks. They'd hit a plant and they just got annoyed. But I had so many people come to the house that caused complications. And it was a big issue between me and Rachel over the years. Rachel didn't just think she rented a flat, she should think she owned the whole block.
But according to Rachel, Harry's visitors did more than just damage her plants.
There was constant noise from that flat up there, and basically there was people partying on a constant basis. There would be drunks outside my front door, there would be fighting on the stairs, the doors would be constantly kicked in, and the police were called, you know, 2-3 times a week.
This is my living room. Over the years, me and my friends used to come in and have parties. We'd sit down here, sit there, we'd have the radio on, we'd have cans of lager or cider or whatever, and put them on the table. We'd have a few rollies, cigarettes, that's the ashtray. Well, happy times, but not for everybody. Rachel would occasionally knock on the door and tell her to keep the noise down, and nobody else complained. It was just Rachel, our friend, so it wasn't that bad.
Despite calling the police out on numerous occasions, Rachel claims Harry's friend's behaviour just got worse.
There was quite a lot of urine on the landings, and obviously the drunks that came into the building would just urinate anywhere that they liked. They would urinate up the front doors. If they couldn't get into the block, there'd be urine in the hallways. There was also one incident, though, where there was quite a lot of faeces as well. I'd come in and I had to take my shoes off on my doormat because I wouldn't actually enter my home with my shoes because there was that much on my land, and it was horrific.
Did get out of hand. Was got quite wild at times.
Harry's partying went on for 5 years, and it started to affect Rachel's health.
Yeah, I was just tired all the time, so worn out, so, got to a point where I could hardly get out of bed in the morning because I was so tired, because it was just non-stop.
Rachel was at the end of her tether, so hired a solicitor and went to the council to try to get Harry evicted from the block.
I thought Rachel was very unreasonable. And I was very close to getting evicted. I had to go see the council. I was in front of the magistrate. The judge said it had to be quietened down, for a period of time.
The fear of eviction caused Harry to rethink his lifestyle.
Since then, things have been quiet, kept the place very quiet. All the parties have stopped.
Rachel thought her nightmare was finally over. But when Harry got a new flatmate, she was in for a rude awakening.
It's just been like a whirlwind of hell.
Coming up, a parking war drives neighbours to distraction.
You pathetic, childish, vindictive little idiot.
And a fresh start in Derby soon turns sour.
I'm not a witch, and I'm certainly not a bitch. I'm a nice person.
Across the country, once thriving housing estates have fallen into disrepair and been bought up by private owners.
I first came here in 1986. I had with me a young lady who I was courting at the time. I was thinking about buying. She said, "You're mad." The place was so run down, there were cracks in the wall, it was in appalling condition, and I just wanted to get on the housing ladder.
When barrister Peter Ward bought a flat on this estate in Southall, West London, he wanted to improve his property. He formed a new residents association. With 48 households, most on low incomes, many were glad to see someone take the lead.
When we moved here, there was rubbish, old washing machines, dumped cars, and it was just a real mess. And Peter embarked on a campaign of putting in plants in, trees, and we all kind of generally cleared the place up.
I became engaged when I got the mortgage and moved in. New home, new wife, everything I wanted.
But once he got started improving the place, Peter wanted to go further. In 1998, he got together with friends and bought the freehold for the whole block. But as he started on his grand plan, Peter was to make a formidable enemy of one neighbour.
In front of me is Frederick House. That's not part of the Southall Court estate. It's owned by a housing association, and up there is where Mr. Morgan lives. Where we really got to know each other was doing air fixes. I used to go to various conventions and exhibitions, and I started taking him with me.
The trouble began when Peter and the new management decided to tackle the parking problem.
It was chaos. There was double parking. It was just a free-for-all. So, after giving the matter a lot of thought, and we knew that we would be unpopular, we decided to control the parking by instigating a permit system.
Peter Ward says he introduced charges of £300 for an annual parking permit. But one resident, who asked us not to identify him, says many of his neighbours couldn't afford the new system.
What are we going to do? We're just about surviving. The whole of the estate are just working-class families. He couldn't give a toss whether the majority of the residents are with him or against him on parking.
They had to buy a permit, and of course there was a lot of grumblings because, you know, they had previously had free parking. But that's the way it is when you're in that position. Sometimes you have to make unpopular decisions.
Because of the disputes over car parking, Peter Ward and his business partners introduced a system of CCTV onto the estate.
So we've got 4 cameras there. There's some cameras up there. And the 4 cameras are there.
And Peter gave the job of ticketing parking offenders to his friend and neighbour, Jim Morgan. He paid him £15 for every ticket issued.
Problem was, there were some appeals that were upheld where he had wrongly ticketed people. And I explained to him that we couldn't pay him for those tickets, that commission, because it had been appealed against. And he got very aggressive, very angry. So we did pay him, and in fact I paid him out of my own pocket and said his services were no longer required.
After Peter Ward sacked Jim Morgan, their friendship was under strain.
One weekday morning I was walking down here, and right in front of me were 2 paladins. Dustbins, of course, don't belong on the road.
The large bins, known as paladins, belong to Jim Morgan's building, but Peter decided to move them into his own bin store.
Mr. Morgan came charging up to me. He said to me, "Peter, Peter, somebody's stolen our paladins." I daredn't say to him that I had moved the paladins, so I just denied all knowledge of it. I said to him, "It's okay, Jim, we can move them back." And he just said, "No, no, I've informed the police. It's a crime scene."
But it wasn't long before Jim identified the culprit.
He said he stole a paladin. I said, why would he steal a paladin? He said, there must be something. You must know something on him. And he said, I need to get him. I need to get him.
Mr. Morgan opened his window and he shouted out to me, "Good morning, Peter. How are you today, you pathetic, childish, vindictive little idiot?" And he was shouting outside at high volume a chicken clucking noise, a kind of a and gesturing like this to my wife. We decided that we'd had enough and were going to see the police. And as I walked away, he shouted out, "Why don't you come and hit me, you scum, you coward?"
This is Harry, who lives on the top floor.
In Newcastle, Rachel Eyre had suffered for years from noisy parties at her neighbour Harry's flat upstairs.
This is my place and I was going to live the way I wanted, but I did go out of hand.
After being threatened with eviction, Harry kept his head down. But he got some new flatmates.
This is the room where Claire and Peter Headley stopped with me. They were really good people to have living here. They were good company for me. Didn't cause any trouble. Maybe had a little arguments now and again, but nothing out of the ordinary.
It wasn't long before Rachel met one of them.
I was standing with a neighbour, chatting about things that had been going on in the block, and then this woman came walking down the road and asked if I was the plant lady. I said yes I was, and that basically she said she'd been as nice as she could be to me. And then she went to walk through those metal doors behind me. I went to follow her into the building to find out what on earth was going on, and she just went from being sort of an everyday kind of person to a monster in about 2 seconds flat. And I was dragged through the doors by the scruff of my coat, yanked down, my head was bashed off the washing machine, which was just inside the metal doors. And then as I fell to the floor, the punches were rained into the back of my head. I was trying to get back up, and this woman went running up the stairs and said that she was going to have me and have my family. I had quite bad bruises on my leg, so it was pretty horrific.
Rachel's attacker was Harry's new flatmate, 50-year-old Claire Humble. She told Harry a very different story.
Rachel lunged at her, she said. She lunged at her, and she said I retaliated by pushing Rachel. There was no mention of like any really physical abuse, like kicking or punching or anything like that. She just came upstairs and a bit stressed out.
But Rachel had already called the police, and Claire Humble was arrested and charged with assault, but she was allowed to keep living in Harry's flat.
On one occasion, Claire Humble had actually tried to get into the block, and because she couldn't get through the security doors to get into the building, she actually sat on that wall there and urinated on the wall. You know, it was pretty awful. And especially when the fact there's, you know, quite a few children in the block as well.
Rachel also started to find mysterious scratches on her car.
As soon as I saw my car, I thought that Claire Humble was responsible. I hadn't had problems with anybody keying my car in the past. And, I mean, the damage was really, really expensive to repair. I mean, I was absolutely heartbroken to see it.
But Harry insists Claire was the perfect flatmate, even helping to brighten up his home.
She went out and chose us paint, which you can see the colour. She started decorating, and she got a nice plaque, "I love your home." So basically, I think she seemed quite settled here. She'd cook nice meals for me. She'd kept the house tidy. No problem whatsoever. There's some graffiti on the wall.
Claire even wrote Harry a poem.
Harry the fish served me a dish of salmon, trout and kippers. I had a few pints and I ran like hell when he tried to get into my knickers. Boom, boom, Claire Humble.
But whilst Claire was settling in, tensions between her and Rachel were beginning to get heated.
I felt totally like I was in a horror movie, you know, because she wouldn't leave us alone. I just never knew when she was going to come round the corner. I was fighting to go home at night, you know, just walking in my front door in case somebody jumped out the tree or something like that.
I could see a big conflict between Rachel and Claire, and it used to get my nerves on edge as well. I knew there was going to be like a volcano erupting, basically.
In September 2013, 6 months after attacking Rachel, Claire Humble appeared in court and was found guilty of assault by beating. She was issued with a restraining order and told to keep away from Rachel, but to Rachel's horror, she was still allowed to live with Harry.
Everywhere I went, I turned around, she was there, doing something or saying she was going to get a hold of us, or, you know, I mean, she was definitely stalking me.
Rachel couldn't bear the harassment any longer, so gradually began to move her belongings out of the flat, spending more and more time at her dad's house. But that didn't deter Claire Humble.
I came down to my car and Claire Humble was literally standing, sort of just kind of there, taking photographs. I was absolutely terrified, so I just got in my car and drove off.
Rachel called the police, and Claire Humble was summoned to court for breaching her restraining order, and she was served with a community order.
It just stopped then, and for weeks, months, there was nothing, and it all seemed to settle down again, and everything was kind of returning back to normal.
But the saga was far from over, and within a year, Claire Humble would come crashing back into their lives.
I just can't believe that was Claire. That wasn't the Claire I knew. So I don't know what ignited it to that extent, but it's just horrific.
Moving to a new home is the perfect chance for a fresh start.
Do you like this new house? Yeah? Like your new school?
Having lived in Nottingham for most of her life, in January 2013, single mom Sam White moved to Derby for a new beginning.
The area seemed clean, it seemed excellent, it seemed fabulous. It was a nice fresh start, a nice house.
A few days after moving in, Sam bumped into her next-door neighbours, Philip Hansley and his girlfriend.
And he had a massive smile on his face and kind of looked me up and down, and not in a nasty way, but in more of a provocative type of manner. I wouldn't say he fancied me, but maybe there was a level of, oh, I've got a pretty girl moving next door. I'm not saying I'm pretty, but that's the impression I got from him. My first impressions of them was, oh my Lord, they look rough, but give them the benefit of the doubt.
Sam also had reservations about another female neighbour over the road.
There's a lot of alcohol around the house, constant marijuana smoking, people coming in and out of the house. I felt bad for her to some point, but at the same time I had to protect me and my child.
We spoke to the neighbour in question, who denies using cannabis and says she rarely drinks alcohol. Sam decided neither she nor Sienna would have anything to do with either family.
From that day onwards, I was continuously getting verbal abuse, shouting out of her window or out of Philip Hansley's window. I was definitely being ganged up on because they were friends, and I'd be called prostitute, slag. One of Philip's favourite words were "you're a witch." You could tell they were just literally sitting by the window waiting for me to come out.
Sam called the police to report both neighbours for the abuse.
Nothing could be done. Hearsay, my word against theirs.
Philip Hansley's girlfriend agreed to speak to us, but asked that we hide her identity.
Allegations that she's made against me or Phil are completely untrue, because we've never done anything to her at all. This is a nice street, it's quiet, people tend to keep themselves to themselves. Everybody's civil and polite, and I've never really had any bother with anybody else.
But later that summer, the situation took a more sinister turn.
I was sat here one evening watching television when I actually heard a car screech outside my house. So I automatically got up because it was very, very loud and walked over to the window. The bass was so loud on this, was unbelievable. It was a summer's night. I had the window open. Two very tall guys got out of the car, and then one of them turned around, one of the guys, they turned around and says, "We've come for you, bitch." And I'm like, oh, really? And at that point, I automatically was frightened to death, and I turned and ran into my hallway quick as I possibly could to make sure that the chain was on the door, but they were already in my house. Within seconds, one of the guys pressed me against the wall, I believe it was with his hands, and pinned me back against the wall, got his arms against my shoulders, but I couldn't move, and I was shouting, "Get off me, get off me, get off me." And it was like, "We've got you now, bitch, we're here for you, bitch." There was a guy stood behind him that kept panicking and looking out the front door because the door was wide open and the music was still blaring out of the car, and it was still parked in the middle of the road. And he said, "Come on, get out, get out, get out the house now." And they ran. They literally let go and ran.
Sam called the police, blaming the family over the road.
The police went and had a word with them, came back to me and said, "Look, we've had a word with these guys. There was no independent witnesses yet again. It's your word against theirs. We can't really do anything. We've told them to stay away from you, but we can't arrest them because nobody else saw it apart from you and them."
The neighbour over the road insists that it was Sam who verbally abused the two men.
Very afraid for my daughter at this point, afraid for our lives. I just had this wrenching feeling 24 hours a day in my stomach that we weren't safe.
Coming up, tempers flare in West London.
I'm going to go out and buy a baseball bat and put this to an end.
And a shocking discovery in Newcastle.
It's like something out of a horror movie, you know, it's just totally unreal to me.
In West London's Southall, barrister Peter Ward had bought the freehold of the estate and fallen out with friend and neighbour Jim Morgan over some Paladin bins.
He stormed away. He said, "You're power crazy and you've got the mentality of a child."
But Peter's management style on the estate had rubbed some residents up the wrong way.
He presents himself as if I am the boss. I know most of you will say no, and I'll just say yes. Very dictatorial, very pig-headed. If you're not with me, you're my enemy, and that's how I'm going to deal with you.
In 2008, Peter Ward filmed this residents' meeting to show how the neighbours behaved towards him.
I know my... Yeah, I'll second the meeting.
Could you all go outside for 10 minutes, please?
We're not going outside. We'll share all this. Nobody's budging.
He obviously started bullying people because he's that type, not letting them speak, tell you to keep quiet or shut up.
The meeting has descended into disorder and is now
No, it
closed.
doesn't. We're just asking for our rights.
People started saying whatever they had on their mind, and he called off the meeting, walked out of the meeting, and that's it.
Peter denies being dictatorial with the neighbours or bullying them. But Jim Morgan was very vocal about his dislike of Peter.
One particular weapon was to play music very, very loud. Classic one that he played time and again was "Every Breath You Take" by the Police, which of course has the words, "I'll be watching you." It got to the stage where it felt like war. Every day, Mr. Morgan was harassing us, shouting at us, swearing at us, stalking us, and we just didn't know if, let alone when, it would stop.
Peter Ward says he tried repeatedly to get the police involved, but he claims Jim Morgan was always one step ahead of him.
Mr. Morgan made counter-allegations that we were harassing him, and in fact I actually received an anti-harassment warning at one point from a local police officer.
Soon things came to a head.
It was Monday, 16th of May 2011, about 7 o'clock in the morning. Mr. Morgan was running up and down this road, backwards and forwards. It was actually quite frightening because he was running very fast and he was swinging his arms like this. And I was going to have to walk past him. I made a point of looking down. I didn't want to have eye contact with him. But then suddenly he barged into me and obviously knocked me to the ground. I was just really shaken and just staggered that he could even dare to do that.
I just had it from Jim. Peter Ward came into Jim Morgan's way intentionally, so Jim Morgan would be forced to collide with him just so he could make up a case. I've never witnessed Jim Morgan getting mad at Peter.
But Peter Ward is adamant that Jim Morgan caused the accident.
Fortunately, we had it on CCTV, and that afternoon I reported it to the police.
But Peter Ward claims the police told him the CCTV footage was inconclusive.
It's the only time in my life when I have thought about taking the law into my own hands. We were in a situation where our lives were being made a complete misery of, and I was seriously contemplating, thinking, well, my life won't be worse in prison. I'm going to go out and buy a baseball bat and put this to an end.
In Newcastle, having been found guilty of harassing her neighbour Rachel Eyre and breaking her restraining order, Claire Humble disappeared from the estate.
I thought, well, you know, hopefully this might be it, but I was never 100% sure, and I was still quite frightened.
Rachel finally moved out of the block for good, putting the ordeal behind her. But a year later, Claire Humble reappeared in an unexpected way.
I just heard about the murder.
In November 2014, the body of Peter Headley, Claire Humble's boyfriend, had been found dumped in woodland just outside Newcastle. Humble was arrested and charged with his murder.
But I just felt sick. I went to bed that night and I just basically held the house down. It was horrible. You know, to know that that person had been after you is awful.
I seen it in the Chronicle. I just couldn't believe it.
In March 2015, Humble appeared in court, where the grisly details of her boyfriend's murder were revealed. At his home, Peter Headley had been beaten and stabbed multiple times in a frenzied attack with pieces of broken crockery.
It really amazed me when I read about the injuries and setting the light to the body. It's like something out of a horror movie, you know. It's just totally unreal to me. It was really, really frightening.
Rachel attended the trial at Newcastle Crown Court.
I actually sat with Peter Headley's family. It was horrible. It was really horrible.
Claire Humble was found guilty of Peter Headley's murder and jailed for life with a minimum term of 20 years.
When I actually read out the convictions, I was the last person that should violently attack before she killed Peter Headley. I felt awful for his family, but to know that that could have been you, horrible.
I'm still shocked now, and so are my friends. And when I come in here sometimes, I think of Claire in the room, I think, well, I could have been lying in bed and I could have had it. It's frightening.
20 years isn't enough for her. And I hope that she's in prison till the day she dies, because I don't think she's safe to be let out.
In Derby, Sam White's dreams for a fresh start were ruined after she fell out with two separate households on the street.
Do not get involved with neighbours, ever.
After claiming to have been threatened in her own home, she began to feel increasingly vulnerable.
Every time we stepped out, we never knew what was going to happen. It was horrific.
One night later that summer, Sam and Sienna got home to find the electricity was down in their home. Sam called out an emergency electrician, and while he was trying to fix it, the woman over the road appeared.
She shouted across, "Why are you getting electricians out? What are you wasting their time for, you slag?" And I remember the electrician saying to me, "Oh my God, what is going on here?"
Now Sam had an independent witness to the abuse. She called the police, and they arrived moments later.
The officers then took his telephone number down and says, we're going to go back to the station and do some more investigating. I went, what? I've been verbally abused by somebody that I've had problems with in the past, and you're going to go back to the station and investigate without even going to speak to these neighbours? I said, you know what, just piss off. And I did. At that point, I was fuming with the police, and yeah, I did use bad language towards them, but at that point, I just wasn't bothered anymore.
The two officers left, and with the electrician unable to restore power, Sam began to investigate the problem alone. Seemingly unaware that the box on the front wall also controlled the supply to her neighbour Philip Hansley's home, a CCTV camera belonging to the woman opposite captured what happened next.
At some point, by switching one of the electric boxes off, I believe the one on the front of the house, Philip came out and started and blinding. At this point, I, for my own self-protection, had my mobile phone on me, on video. I clearly warned him. I said, look, Phil, I'm videoing this. Leave us alone. I'm just trying to get some electricity on. Please, 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 leave us alone. We're frightened.
Annoyed at being filmed, Philip snatched Sam's mobile phone and made his way over the road to talk to the woman opposite. But Sam was determined to get her phone back.
Then he throws my phone across the road. He slapped me pretty hard. I kick out in self-defence, kickboxing. I do go back at him, but not to hurt him, just to get him off me.
With the situation spiralling out of control, Philip decided to take action.
Wow, and then you can see where he takes me down. The neighbour who lived across the road comes out and I get taken down to the floor. Philip had his hand around my throat so I could barely breathe. She was threatening to douse me in petrol and set me on fire. She proceeded to spit on me, I think 3 times. She'd got hold of my hair by one of her hands and she was smashing my head on the floor. And I heard it smash, I could hear it crack.
The woman in question denies spitting, hitting or threatening Sam and says she was only helping Philip to restrain her. But Sienna, who had been tucked up in bed, heard shouting, so came outside to investigate.
Sienna's face was white. It was just white, like a ghost.
While Sam was pinned to the road, her neighbours called the police.
Very quickly I heard the sirens and she went, right, Phil, get off her now. Get off and let her go. At this point I was covered in spit. I was covered in cuts and bruises. My hair was all over the place. I had a cut on my leg, all on my arms.
The police arrived and spoke to everyone involved. Philip's girlfriend agreed to tell us her version of what happened, but asked that we conceal her identity.
We know for a fact that she switched the electricity off, because she can see it. There were no accidents. She did it purposely because she turned it off twice. You can see the lights going off in our house. She did it to get a reaction out of us, just to cause trouble. She was putting the phone up into his face, so he took the phone off her, and she climbed over the fence and she started attacking him. She were the one that were doing all the violent acts that night. None of us did anything at all. Neither did those two when they were holding her down. They were just restraining her because she was like a wild animal.
The police officers then came back into my house and said, "We're arresting you on suspicion of assault." And I said, "What?"
Sienna stayed with friends while Sam was taken to the police station for questioning and kept overnight.
Well, actually being put in the cell down here was probably the most horrific experience of my life. I was shaking, I was in fear, I was completely numb, and I didn't know what the outcome was going to be.
Sam received a caution under the Public Order Act for threatening behaviour. Philip faced charges of common assault, but all charges were dropped. He received a caution for criminal damage to Sam's phone. No charges were brought against the woman who lived opposite.
The main thing that was hurting me was not what they'd done to me, is what my daughter had seen. That's the bit I couldn't accept. An 8-year-old child should never, ever have to experience anything like that.
Sam and Sienna no longer felt safe living on the street, so have since moved away from the area.
Situation I never want to be in again, ever. I don't even feel nice being around here. I feel physically sick, to be honest with you. Just feels dark and horrible, and thank God we're out. To be honest, thank God we're out.
Sam's neighbours declined to appear in this programme, but they insist that all the problems on the estate were caused by Sam.
I still don't know why she decided to gun for us, because we've never done anything to her or any of the other neighbours on the street. It's just unbelievable, all of it. I don't understand why it happened. It just makes you feel that world's gone mad.
Coming up, in West London, simmering tensions finally erupt.
This man's crazy. It seems like he'll even put his own body in danger.
On a West London estate, barrister Peter Ward had failed to convince the police that his neighbour and former friend Jim Morgan had been harassing him for weeks.
It was obvious that his sole intention in life was just to get at us.
Peter decided to use his legal expertise to bring private criminal proceedings against Jim Morgan.
I wrote a letter to Mr. Morgan's landlord saying that we intended to commence proceedings against Mr. Morgan for the harassment, and a copy was also posted to Mr. Morgan. I know that he got it because on the following day he pushed the envelope under the door, writing on the back, "Dear Mr. Ward, I buy my own toilet paper, thank you. Andrex triple ply, nice." To liken my letter to toilet paper. This is somebody beyond negotiation, beyond meaningful discussion.
6 months after the trouble began, Peter Ward got Jim Morgan convicted of assault and criminal damage to his camera when the two men had collided.
I was pleased, of course, that I was believed by the magistrates when so often police had doubted my word.
Peter also managed to get a permanent injunction against Jim Morgan, preventing him from harassing him and his wife, including shouting or playing loud music from his window. And Morgan was told to pay more than £25,000 in damages, plus more than £16,000 in legal costs to Peter, his wife and business partner. A total bill of nearly £45,000.
He's now an undischarged bankrupt permanently, so we'll never probably get anything from him.
What's it like being bankrupt? Indefinitely. When are you going to pay us our £45,000?
This footage was filmed by Peter Ward and his business partner.
Is that your reaction to the court order? Mr. Morgan, you owe us £45,000. When are you going to pay that? When are you going to pay this court order? You are bankrupt, Mr. Morgan. You are bankrupt. When are you going to pay it?
Peter says that although Jim Morgan hasn't paid the compensation, the injunction worked and the harassment stopped. After 2 years of relative peace, Peter got together with his business partner to begin a brand new plan for the estate.
In the summer of 2014, we started building the new block of flats. We had first thought of this way back in 2007, 2008. This was a dream come true, and I really was over the moon, very happy bunny.
But the building works appeared to provoke a reaction from Mr. Morgan.
To say Mr. Morgan was causing a nuisance and an annoyance to the builders is an understatement.
And that's Mr. there videoing me.
He would walk up to them very closely with a clipboard as if he was some kind of official. He would speak into his dictaphone as if he's giving some kind of report. And the builders, of course, found this very difficult, because what he used to do was, if a builder said to him, "It's dangerous here, move away," he used to say, "You're threatening me," and dial 999.
This footage was filmed by Peter Ward's business partner.
Yes, I've just been threatened by a worker on construction.
Well, he hasn't, because I've got it recorded. He just lied there. But it's on tape now, and he's just phoned the police. And now I will play this back to the police when they come, and they see what he calls a threat.
Whatever his reasons, Jim Morgan seemed prepared to go even further to interfere with Peter's building project.
And there was a very large brick delivery lorry here, on the road here. And Mr. Morgan told the driver that a car wanted to leave Frederick House. When the lorry reversed, Mr. Morgan ran down the side of the lorry and stood about here, and he stood like this in front of the lorry. At the time I thought, well, on the one hand, this man's crazy. It seems like he'll even put his own body in danger to stop the building works.
Peter Ward decided to go back to court to argue that Jim Morgan had breached his injunction. But when he tried to serve the court papers, Jim called the police and showed what he thought of the paperwork. In March 2015, a warrant for Jim Morgan's arrest and a committal to prison for 28 days was issued, but he is yet to serve it.
It just never ceases to amaze me that he seems to have such venom and hatred at me and what we've done here. And I just don't know why that is.
Peter Ward carries on doing whatever he wants to do. I mean, if I were to wind you up every day of the week, every time I see you, I say something nasty to you, would you put up with it?
Peter insists he's never said anything nasty to Jim Morgan, and he's currently focused on improving the estate.
You can't park here at the moment without a permit, and we just give permits to our contractors.
Oh, so not even residents?
Not even resident, not at this moment, no. We haven't made the final decision yet as to whether to allow parking again. These cars, that car's mine, Fiat. These are the contractors.
We invited Jim Morgan to appear in this programme, but he didn't get back to us. Peter's now moving into a flat in the new block.
We are closer to Mr. Morgan's home than we ever have been. I'm almost pleased that we are opposite Mr. Morgan's flat. I do want him to see that he hasn't been able to stop us from building our new home, and a home that we intend to spend the rest of our lives.
Have you got a nightmare neighbour story? Get in touch at channel5.com/nightmare neighbour. Next time.
He had his face up the glass and he said, "You cannot escape me."
All of a sudden, my family are in serious danger.
What happens when a neighbour dispute turns deadly?
We didn't take it seriously. I wish we had, but we didn't.
He was never going to let it go until I think he put us into our grave.
Catch all that new next Wednesday at 8. Exposing the fraudsters that give genuine claimants a bad name. Paul Connolly's playing the scammers at their own game tonight. Britain on benefit season continues with new undercover benefits cheat. Next.